This woman has taken on the professional running scene after running Division I collegiate cross country and track at Butler University with professional PRs of 118 and a half marathon and 249 in the marathon, and is now working with one of the largest brands in the world, and is on her way to running sub 245 in the marathon while becoming a foot surgeon all at the same time. This is Emily Royston, a Butler University alum turned on ambassador and road racing phenom. Welcome to the podcast, Emily. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to start.
Yeah, well, let's hop right into it and learn more about how you got to where you are now. I want to ask you how you're able to balance all the demands of competing at such a high level and still becoming a foot surgeon all at the same time.
Yeah, so it's definitely not for the faint of heart. Although I've always been super competitive, so anything that I do, I kind of want to be like the best that I can of it. So juggling both a rigorous school schedule as well as the demands of training is definitely tough. It then also becomes a question of like how bad do I want it? So I'm in a constant battle with time to get everything done, and unfortunately, the thing that kind of gets sacrificed the most is sleep. But that's honestly my little secret. It was a huge learning curve to kind of figure out how to recover and function normally on such little sleep for so long. But I obviously don't recommend this for everybody, especially somebody that's trying to compete at a high level. But it goes to show that if you want something, there is a way to make it happen. You don't have to sacrifice one over the other. I had to learn to make my days, uh, or to take my days as they come and to hold off on workouts if I need to avoid getting hurt both physically and emotionally.
Yeah. What was the secret that you kind of came up with the sleep and being able to recover all at the same time?
Shout out to caffeine. I drink a ridiculous amount of it every day. Too much to share on online because I would get in trouble for how much caffeine I drink.
What's your go-to? Coffee or is it Red Bulls or what?
Ugh, it's like a Celsius on exam days and then like way too much coffee to follow, so I don't even want to count the milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. A lot of caffeine gets you through sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yep, yep.
But it helps. When you're trying to balance all this, how would you say like college kind of contributed to this, and what did you teach yourself about you? I know you said like if you want it, it just depends on how bad you want it to be good at something that you want to be the best at. Do you think coming out of high school that you would be where you are today with all of that?
Definitely not. I like to talk about my running career like a roller coaster. There's really good seasons and then there's really bad seasons. And I've kind of, as I've grown more matured and grown older, I've realized that these ups and downs are definitely related to like my mentality and where I'm at mentally. But coming out of high school, I only had a couple of walk-on offers, and the only college that gave me like any sort of scholarship was UW-Milwaukee. So I took that and ran with it. But I was a very mid D1 runner. I think I ran like a 12-minute 3K as a freshman. And then a major life event happened where I lost my grandmother, who was like my whole world. So that kind of contributed to a huge mental shift in my mentality and everything. So I kind of took running as my sort of therapy and I put that on the forefront. And I actually did take off both school and running during, trying to deal with the whole loss of somebody so important to me, but didn't know what the future would hold. Kept running, and that was my safe space. So kept up with it, and that's kind of, I would say, what brought, running into my world and kind of changed the way I looked at it and how I competed and all of that.
Yeah. With dealing with the roller coaster, I know a lot of collegiate careers are the same way, and a lot of just running careers in general, whether it's at a high level or you're just getting started, there's very ups and downs in running. You get hurt, it's a very hard time. External events like that happen. How do you kind of stay even keeled in all of that?
I think the most important thing is to recognize that like it's not normal to be like 100% perfect. And I think that's what makes us human and that's what makes running so unique is that you don't stop just because you have a bad season and you don't take on running just because you have a good season. Like you have to deal with the ebbs and flows, and I think that's what makes it so addicting too, is because you're going to have a bad season and then come back and be like, "Whoa, that was like incredible. I love that feeling. I want that again." So it's definitely just addicting. But that's natural to have those ups and downs.
Yeah, I think it's definitely what makes running addicting is the highs of it, and the lows are just like, man, I want to get back to that.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so as a high school athlete, you said like, the only scholarship opportunity you had was at UW-Milwaukee. You were running 1930s and 520s, and then you were able to get to Butler and run at the Division One NCAA cross country championships. What was that journey like? I know you said you took a year off and tried to figure out what you were doing, but what was that process like, transitioning from where you were to where you ended up?
Right. So I didn't take a year off. I just like kind of took a little break from everything, but I do feel extremely grateful to have found the opportunities that I did and to have the people to get me there. But I remember there was like a point where I was just dealing with a lot of stuff mentally and I was like, I need a change. And that was when, like, I can't remember how it came about, but they were like, now there's like this whole transfer portal thing. And I was like, whoa, like, what are the odds? Like, I'm trying to find something new and this just opened up. This just happened, whatever. So I entered it and it was like the weirdest time of my life because I had emails within like hours of people like literally offering me like outrageous things that I never had dreamed about, like full ride scholarships, just like spots on rosters that I was like, this is like a dream school. I'd never ever imagined myself getting there. And I eventually ended up visiting 5 different programs, all of which offered me full rides, which to me was like astonishing. Like I was like, this is like I could never dream of this, but I really clicked with the girls at Butler and the coaches as well, who were there to definitely offer like the help that I needed and to help me get over those personal battles. And at Butler, my first year, I was able to make it to nationals in cross country. And then my 5th year, I was able to make it to nationals as a team, which was like absolutely incredible. And those memories are something I couldn't ever replicate. I wish I could go back every day. But overall, it was like a crazy ride. Like little me as a D1, mid D run runner would never imagine getting that full ride scholarship, and competing with the best of the best and meeting such amazing people along the way.
Yeah, I know looking back at my own career, like I would say the biggest accomplishment I ever had was with a team, versus an individual kind of experience where it's great, but you're the only one that was able to experience that. At Butler,
Right.
what was that like getting that second opportunity to go back with a team?
It was like you said, like it's one thing to like be there as an individual, but it's a whole other thing to experience it with people that, you worked hard with every day and that you saw how much effort and how much they grinded every day just like you did. So it was kind of just much more rewarding as a team, I would say.
Yeah, and the experience, I feel like going with a team, you kind of build those memories not just in the race, but outside of the race, getting to travel on the bus, going to the meets, having fun, like looking around at the other teams that are there and kind of figuring out where you might be in that mix. I think that's such like a fun part of cross country versus the track and field aspect, where you get to travel with those 7 girls that are competing at the highest level.
For
And
sure,
so
yeah.
yeah, when you were able to make that meet like and run at such an iconic place, how were you able to deal mentally with being not only your second time coming back, but like knowing you had been there? What was that kind of experience the second time versus the first time?
The first time was all like, it was kind of like living a fever dream where you're like, am I really here right now? Like, even just crossing the finish line was like a huge win for me. And the second time around, I kind of felt like I wasn't racing for myself. It was more like I was racing for the team. So I kind of took on a whole different mental attitude about like racing. I wasn't just like I'm here for the experience. I was like I want my team to do well. If I see my teammate struggling, like I want to be there for them or like pick them up where they're struggling and then they'll pick me up along the way. But it was very different in like how I wanted to represent myself and then also represent Butlers. So definitely changed the way I wanted to go about the day.
Yeah. I know, like, specifically, Butler has been sort of a place where transfers have been able to kind of move into Butler. Like, a lot of people are able to transfer in there. They might not be able to come out of high school and run at such like a prestigious cross country university like that. Um, Being that safe haven at Butler, were there other people on the team that were kind of in the same boat as you? Like, hey, this is kind of this new attempt. I'm here. Like, what was that kind of experience like being able to meet people that had also had the prior experience of being on a collegiate team before?
It was awesome. I would say I think only one girl transferred at the state. Like either a year after me or at the same time as me, but it was like an immediate like connection where we were like, all right, we can talk about maybe what we loved about our old schools and what we miss and all of that stuff. But what really like made it cool was just like how welcoming like the Butler girls were, where it wasn't like, I was some outsider. It was like she's here to like be with us. Like there was no distinction between the two. It was just like we're one big family.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think like the transfer portal has opened up this whole new aspect of cross country and every sport, honestly. But being able to experience that yourself has been probably a crucial piece of that memory. But transitioning to the professional scene where you're kind of on your own now, how does that differ from being in that team environment? Is it obviously it's more on you to go out and do the workouts and be, consistent and determined to be the best at what you want to do. How do you kind of stick to that routine as just an individual now?
Yeah, it's definitely very different. I knew from a very young age, like people were always pushing me towards the roads. People were like, you're going to be a great marathon runner, all of that. But it's a lot of like trial and error. I have to like figure out what works for me. And like, it used to be like I would just be prescribed these workouts and I would just, I'd feel good because I'd be told that I'd feel good or that these paces would feel good. Now it's a lot of like, I have to listen to my body. I have to like know that on that Wednesday I wanted to do the workout. I have to get myself out there and especially in New York City, like trying to get to the track or trying to get to Central Park is just like a lot of work and especially when I'm so tired. But, honestly, I think that's kind of another secret is like being able to figure out like even though it's like almost impossible to get out the door, like how I'm gonna do it every day. And like that's a whole nother battle as well. But having so much freedom in my training is refreshing. And being able to hire a coach if I do want is also pretty cool. It just feels like a lot of options.
Yeah. Being able to kind of train yourself, like what did you learn that you liked and didn't like in college? What did you take from that experience and like kind of transition out of or stay with now that you're kind of training on your own?
Let's see. I mean, I never have been a huge fan of the track, so I honestly like if I get to the track, like that's a huge win for me. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what's in my mind that day, but I've loved like those really long run workouts that were never really a staple in college. And I like being able to, I bike a little bit now, so being able to incorporate cross training has been really fun for me. Just like, again, refreshing, just something new that, my body from 5 years hasn't been used to.
Yeah, in college it's very structured. It's every day you're showing up. Especially the racing schedule when you're in season, it can be kind of grueling, especially track. With indoor meets all the time, outdoor meets all the time. You're traveling 3 days ahead with a team, and you don't race until whatever 6 or 7 at night, and indoor and outdoor. Now that you kind of get that like one shot, one opportunity to run in the marathon and half marathon, how do you kind of prepare yourself to go into race day knowing that there might not be another one for a month or two after this one?
Yeah, that's definitely a big struggle, especially because these races are scheduled so far in advance and my schedule changes week by week, so I don't know what's going to be happening at that time. And so like I think it was the Brooklyn half, I had like a final the next morning and I had a final the Friday before too, so I was like I had one day to study for this exam. But I think that's what makes it fun too, is it's like you can just schedule it and if you have a great day, great, but if you don't, like, all right, whatever, like back to the work. It's, the work is just as rewarding as the race for me. So just kind of looking forward to it and using it as kind of like a reason to get out the door has been kind of my motivation.
Yeah, and then you're able to end up winning the Baltimore Marathon. How did that happen? And kind of take us through that experience of being able to be there.
Yeah, so that was my first ever marathon. I got the opportunity through Under Armour. Somebody reached out to me and they were like, "Do you want to race for us?" Like, this opportunity. And I was like, "Well, I'm not somebody that says no." So I was like, "Of course." And then I also got the opportunity to race the New York City Marathon like 3 or 4 weeks after the Baltimore Marathon. So I was like, okay, I need a coach. And so I found Owen through After Hour Athletics, and he's a friend of mine. So he coached me, and yeah, it was I wanted to win. Like I said, I'm competitive, so I had that one goal. No matter what time it was, I was just gonna win. So it was fun, and it kind of jump started me into being like, okay, the marathon is where I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably no greater feeling than winning your first ever marathon and out of college. Was road racing something that you had always thought about doing? Like, I know you said your coaches and people around you had always said like you would be good at the roads and marathon. Was that something that you always thought about wanting to compete in?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the track kind of intimidates me. I remember in college it was like I would run my 200-meter strides, or what we call them, all out, but it would be like the same pace as like a 200-meter and my 800-meter workout run. Like I have one speed, and so I was like, how do I use this skill? And so
Yeah,
obviously, just the longer the race, I felt like the better I fared.
yeah. Have you ever thought about doing anything above the marathon, or is that as far as you're gonna go?
I mean, if somebody gives me the opportunity, I definitely would. Like I'm like I'll jump on opportunities. Like people will give me race bibs, and I'm like, yes, of course. But for me to reach out to like go do this race, like it's gonna take a lot of effort.
Especially with the schedule, I'm sure it's kind of like, I'll do this one,
Yeah.
I won't do that one. So, talk a little bit about the On Ambassador deal and how that came about and how you're ultimately able to run your PR in their shoes.
Yeah. I've always been curious about running brands and the so-called like big name brands in college were, the Nike, the Adidas, the Under Armour, and all of that. And On wasn't like huge when I first was in college. I did work at like a running store, so I was always like trying on the new shoes, and I was like, oh my gosh, all the cool people came in to get the On shoes. Like I want to be like that. And so I got like people were like sending me like you can sign up for this ambassadorship, whatever, and I was like, oh, seems cool, but I'm not cool enough, whatever, I'll try. And then things worked out in my way, and they brought me onto their team, and it's been like absolutely insane because I am very particular with my running shoes. Obviously, as a foot doctor, I know how important they are. And they're just the shoes that like they'll last forever and they'll feel the exact same, like 400 miles down the road, which I haven't had success with other brands. So I was like, I am so game. Like this is exactly what I want. And then their new super shoes that just came out on brand, like exactly what I was just saying with their training shoes. They just last super long. They feel like the top line running shoe, but they'll last 40 times longer than the other ones.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a cool deal that you're able to kind of be a part of, especially not being like so big while you were in college. On has obviously taken over a lot of the running world with elite athletes and obviously like their marketing tactics and their shoes. It's been kind of fun to watch somebody go after the running shoe game because it has been sort of dry for so long with just like kind of three main brands here and there. That's awesome. So I kind of want to ask you three quick questions to finish up the podcast. My first question is your favorite place that you've ever run.
Ooh. Um, I would have to say in college, my Butler teammates and I, one of the girls lives out in like the LA area. So we were there for spring break and she took us to, I think it was like a Beverly Hills trail. And
Okay.
like we saw like dolphins in the ocean. It was just like a beautiful long run that I was like, my little Midwest brain could not wrap her head around. I was like, how is this real? But that was, yeah, top, I would say that was my top run.
That's awesome. I've never seen dolphins on a run, so maybe I'll have to go sometime and
For
see
sure.
that.
Beverly Hills, that's it.
Is it on Strava? We need the people to be able to see it.
Honestly, it probably is. You'll have to dig, but it's in there.
The second question is your favorite part about road running and races.
Ooh. I would say like the people. I feel like that's a cliche answer, but it's like I've met some of my best friends through running. And like especially after college, trying to like make friends is such a weird concept, but it seems like every race that I go to, like I make a friend and they're always like, runners are just friendly people, so it's easy to make friends and keep friends because you'll want to train for the next race together. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely people.
everyone's suffering through the same thing for 26
Right.
miles.
We're all a little bit insane, yeah.
Yeah. Third question is your favorite professional athlete or top three to watch right now?
Top three. I'm gonna have to go with three because I feel like the running world is kind of popping off right now.
Yeah.
In terms of like Marathon, I would go with Emma Bates. I feel like she is like a really good role model, like somebody that if I could be like an 18th of, I would like win at life. Um, and she's just like cool. Like I if I could spend a day with her, that'd be awesome. And then Grant Fisher, obviously, he's been world records left and right, so he's somebody that, is insane and I love watching because he just works so hard. And then El Saint, how do you say her name? El Purrier,
Courier, yeah.
Saint Pierre. She's just like remaking the whole running scene. Like she's telling everyone kind of you can do it all and you don't have to give up one thing for another thing. And it's just been cool to watch her and see what she's been doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like a role model, especially in the same kind of situation. I know she had a kid, but you're becoming a foot surgeon at the same time. Very similar kind of
Yeah.
similar kind of situations where you're balancing all of these different life tactics around you, and still
Right.
being able to compete at a high level. She's an amazing athlete to watch. Emma Bates is also just absurd the way that she's been able to come back after an injury and be able to run at a high level. Yeah, she's awesome. I actually got to watch one of her workouts in Colorado. We just saw her like running in a random road, and I was like totally fanboying. I was like, no way, it's Emma Bates. Like, what is last question is what is one race you want to run in the future?
Hmm. I am not super well traveled, but I know that they just added the Sydney, is it the Sydney Marathon?
In
So
Australia?
yeah, I would like to do a marathon in somewhere that I've never been, I feel like would be like the perfect way to get to know the city or to know kind of the cool touristy spots. So I would say the Sydney Marathon would be
That would
awesome.
be awesome. That would be awesome. Hopefully, it wouldn't be too hot.
You know what? I'll take it after how cold it's been here in New York.
Yeah, there is actually a marathon in Antarctica if you would ever want to run
Okay,
that.
I'll have to look, if somebody offers it up, I won't say no.
Well, thanks again, Emily, for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Of
Let us
course.
know what your plans are and where people can follow along with your journey.
My next race is I'm doing the Trials of Miles. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, the Trials of Miles Project 13.1. It's like an hour north of New York City. So I'm doing that one in like less than a month now, kind of scary. And then Grandma's Marathon in June. That'll be the weekend after I finish my third year of medical school, so it'll be a little last hurrah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It'll be a fast race, too.
Yeah,
Well, awesome, Emily. Thanks again so much. Good luck in a month on the race, and good
thank
luck with
you.
school and everything else.
Thank you so much.